too long this evening, but I do think we have some important information to cover. Everyone right now is, excuse me, is muted. At the end of the webinar, I'll unmute everyone and we'll open it up to a general Q&A if you have any questions. But I want to try and get through as much as possible without being interrupted. So without further ado, let's get started. So some of you guys should have already today received your Training Peaks login. Some of you guys should still be getting those there tomorrow. Some of the systems in New York Roadrunners have to be updated and our system has to be updated. So just sit tight. If you haven't gotten your login to Training Peaks, you'll get it either today or tomorrow. And then we'll officially start training. When you log into Training Peaks, make sure you verify your email. It's really important. That will assure that you get your daily workouts every single day. That will be emailed to you. You can actually go in and change the time that those workouts get sent to you. As far as the actual schedule, I don't want to talk too much about the nuts and bolts of the schedule. We will touch on it a little bit tonight. Again, take a look at Training Peaks if you haven't already. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. And basically, you have a mileage assigned for the day, depending on what group you are, beginner, intermediate, advanced. If you're unsure which schedule to follow, then please let me know. I can always advise you. My suggestion is always, try to be consistent and pick the easier schedule versus trying to tackle a more advanced schedule. You can always graduate. You feel the schedule is too easy at a certain point in the training to something a little bit more advanced if you feel it's too easy. Anyway, let me say a couple general things about the schedule, though, as we do have a lot of people that are new to, first-time marathoners, and so I think a lot of the things will be really relative to you guys and even veterans as well. So, but the beginning part of any training program is always the hardest part. So keep that in mind. The next few weeks, generally as you build your fitness, that's generally where you're going to feel the most tired. You're going to feel like, you're kind of struggling a little bit. But after you kind of get past that kind of first 2 or 3 week block, it definitely gets easier. So just trust the process. And that said, it's really important to go easy. It's really important that all of your runs should be conversational in the first kind of 2 or 3 weeks before we kind of start the speed work and tempo runs and stuff like that. So make sure you're going easy and not going too hard. Again, everything should be conversational. Try to set yourself up for success. My advice to everyone is always try to run earlier in the day, before life gets in the way and before, especially, in the summertime, it just gets too hot later in the day. So, if you can, run in the morning, if at all possible. If you do miss a workout, it's not the end of the world. We all have things to get in the way, work, life, family, all kinds of stuff like that. So if you miss a workout or 2 workouts, don't worry about it. The worst mistake you can make is trying to kind of make it up. So just skip it and move on. Get back on the schedule as soon as possible. If you miss a big chunk of time, then definitely let me know. If you have an injury or get sick, same thing. Please let me know as soon as possible. Every year I get an email from somebody a week right before the race saying, I've had an injury for about 4 weeks, but I want to know what to do about it now. And I just kind of unfortunately shake my head and just wish that person had just reached out to me earlier. So, even if it's the smallest little thing, let me know. Use me as a resource. I've had pretty much every injury in the book myself, or, coached athletes that have had pretty much every injury in every situation. So, I know how to deal with these things, know how we can adjust the schedule, how we can cross-train, how we can get through things. And pretty much within reason, it's never too late to get back on track. So, keep that in mind. We'll talk more about this in detail, and you'll get some emails. And this is kind of definitely pointed more towards the newer people and people that are, maybe haven't trained for marathons before, haven't done anything like this. But you'll see on this schedule, once we get to, I think it's week 3, You'll see when we start to do some speed work and hills and tempo runs. There's definitely a huge value to doing this, specifically for marathon training. So one of the things it's really important to understand is, you don't slow down in a marathon because you're aerobically challenged, okay? You slow down for two reasons. You slow down, one, because of muscle fatigue, and two, because you run out of fuel. And, while you can kind of work on kind of training both of those to a certain degree, just by running longer and training your body, running hills is one way to really, that along with we'll talk about in a second, strength training is a really integral part, I think, of building strength for the marathon. And specifically for the New York City Marathon. If you've never run the New York City Marathon, if you're a first timer, just trust me, it's a deceptively hilly course. The bridges are pretty long and steep. Coming up Fifth Avenue, kind of from mile, 21 to 23, definitely a long grade. And keep in mind, if you go and run some of those hills, by themselves, they may not seem like that much. But again, trust me, the last, 6 or 8 miles, they seem like mountains. So try to get as many hills as you can, into your training, in your daily runs, especially your long runs, and definitely try to do, the hills that are assigned on the schedule. I realize we have people that live all over the country and may not, maybe you live in, somewhere in Texas and there's no hills. But, you can always get on a treadmill and simulate some hills indoors. So kind of keep that in mind. Same thing with speed work. You don't have to go to a track and do speed work. You can do it anywhere. You can do it on a treadmill. You can do it on a marked bike path. A lot of people obviously have, iPhones and GPS watches, so you can pretty much do it everywhere or anywhere. And it's really, one of the things, the most important thing is to understand you don't have to go out there and necessarily, kill yourself and be absolutely kind of dead at the end of a speed work session or hill session or tempo run. The idea is we're trying to build fitness. We're kind of trying to get fitter and stronger. And so, if you've never done these types of workouts and you're not really sure about effort levels, my suggestion is always start easier, on the easier end of the effort level prescribed, and then always finish stronger. You always want to finish every single run, every single workout, feeling like you could have given more, you could have gone faster. You shouldn't feel like you're absolutely just completely spent and tired and broken, and that's not the point of training. The point of training is to recover from that workout and move to the next workout as quickly as possible, and to build fitness. So keep that in mind as you, even do your daily runs and daily workouts, but especially when you do your speed work and hills and tempo runs and long runs. All right, so tomorrow you guys are going to get an email that's also going to have attached to it some strength training. You're going to get 3 videos, one on running form, one on foam rolling, and one on stretching. We're going to touch a little bit on running form tonight, but honestly, we could spend hours and hours and hours talking about all of these things. So definitely make sure you look at those videos. I think there's some really useful information in there. But I do want to talk about strength training tonight and really kind of impress upon you guys the importance of strength training. I think the obvious thing is that, strength training is applicable to running in terms of kind of injury prevention, and keeping you healthy. But as I said, I think for marathon training, a lot of people don't realize how important it is, like I said, really to keep you from slowing down those last few miles. So to that end, you'll definitely, get some running specific strength training that's going to be assigned twice a week. So it's important to understand again, why we're doing this. So one, like I said, to kind of ideally make you a little bit stronger in training, and then also especially on obviously race day, to keep you from slowing down those last few miles where most age groupers tend to kind of slow down because they're like just don't, if you were an elite runner, you would definitely be running many more miles, but that's not the reality for most of us. So we try to kind of make it up by doing some strength training, and that will keep you from slowing down the last few miles. But running itself is a catabolic activity, which means it breaks the body down. So we also do strength training to help build the body back up. You should always do your strength training, and it's going to be assigned essentially, the strength will be assigned twice a week in the core, anywhere from kind of 2 to 4 times a week, depending how much time you have in your schedule. But you always want to do your strength training after your hard workouts, ideally after your harder workouts, your speed work, your tempo runs, never before. Otherwise, it takes away from those workouts. So yeah, you're definitely going to be a little bit more tired when you're doing your strength training because obviously you've done your run for that day. So whether you're doing it, immediately after your run and you're going straight to the gym, or maybe you're doing it later in the evening, you run in the morning, then you run late, do your strength later in the evening, you probably still will be tired. But the other advantage to this is there actually is a hormonal response, like I said, an anabolic response that's happening there. And this is why we do this, and this is why I recommend you do your strength training this way. When you're doing strength training, it's actually, even like I said, even though you're more tired, it's helping with the recovery process. Because when you're doing strength training, you're releasing a little bit of HGH into your system, and you're helping them with the recovery process. So, if at all possible, always make sure, I realize everyone has, lives and schedules and stuff. But again, try to do your strength training on the days you do your hard workouts and never before. Again, really, try to make sure again, I understand that, the running's obviously probably the most specific thing that people tend to focus on. And obviously when we have limited time in our life and schedules, this is the first thing to kind of go out the window, doing strength training and core. But I just want to impress upon you, it is a really important part of the training program. If you miss it once a week, it's not a big deal. But if you're just not doing it, and you just decide not to do it, then you really are shortchanging yourself, and you're really going to kind of struggle those last few miles. That's just the reality. And hopefully that will kind of, in a good way, kind of scare you a little bit into actually doing the strength training. So again, you'll receive your strength training tomorrow, your core work, a little link to a video with the core work. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, okay? All right. Again, I know we have a lot of new people in the program. So a good place for newbies or for anyone, especially when you're starting a marathon training program, is to go to your local specialty running store. You can find a lot of great things you should have, and if you don't have, you should pick up. So some of these things will be new for the new people, and some of these things I think will be a good reminder for some of you more advanced or veteran runners. But things like a gait analysis, obviously technical running apparel, hats, sunglasses, socks. We'll talk more about some of these things. Nutrition, things that everyone should have, like a foam roller and hydration belts. And then obviously also your local running store, usually a lot of times they have group runs and things like that, so keep that in mind. Just generally a good, all-around resource. So I want to talk really quickly about the importance of having a good pair of running shoes. And even for those of you that have been running for years and years, I think there may be some important information here. So everyone has a different foot type, different foot structure, different foot shape. and different biomechanics. So there's no one running shoe for everyone. You know, if your friend tells you, hey, I love this pair of Asics or this pair of Brooks, well, that's great for them, but that may not be good for you. So again, definitely go to your local specialty running store, have them do a video gait analysis, have them present you with a few pairs that you can try on and run on a treadmill, and select a pair that feels good to you. You know, try it for a few runs. If it doesn't feel like it's the right shoe, don't be afraid to take it back. All of the brands will take it back. A couple tips: always make sure your running shoes are half the full size bigger than your normal dress shoe size. If you haven't already kind of made that jump, maybe you've only been doing 5Ks or 10Ks, and maybe you've gotten away with it doing half marathon training, but you need to have more room when you're doing longer runs training for a marathon in the front of your shoes. Otherwise, you will get blisters and black toenails. You know, keep in mind, especially in the summertime, your foot tends to swell. So it's really important, you know, make sure you have enough room there. Something else that's really important, and a lot of times when I tell this to people, the jaws kind of drop, but you're just really going to have to trust me. As someone who managed a running store for a number of years, you know, I understand the inner workings of a shoe and how they break down and all that kind of stuff. So, and more importantly, I've seen the correlation between people coming through the door, you know, with injuries and who essentially overstayed their welcome in shoes. So you ideally want to replace your running shoes every 3 to 4 months. And that may sound excessive, and I understand that. But keep in mind, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your body. So, you know, I used to have the luxury of being able to put on a new pair every couple of weeks. And even then, yeah, I was running a lot of miles, and you know, but I could tell the difference after kind of 3 or 4 weeks. It would start to break down. So there's a couple things that happen to a shoe. First, structure of the shoe starts to break down. So it's not giving you the right amount of support. So after kind of 2 to 3 months, you know, it's definitely not giving you the same, you know, support. Probably, you know, 25 to 50% less than it was when you first were wearing it. And then also, the cushioning simply starts to break down. You know, and obviously depending how much you're running and how much you weigh, things like that. But your body's just taking a pounding. And like I said, inevitably people start to get little aches and pains, and all because, you know, they don't want to spend, you know, $100 to $120. You know, and more expensive shoes aren't necessarily better. But again, you know, it's much more prudent to replace, you know, a pair of running shoes that end up getting injured and not being able to run the marathon, or having to end up in a doctor's office or physical therapist's office and pay hundreds of dollars. So, you know, make sure, ideally, you should have a brand new pair to start training, and you should really, you know, also get a new pair. We'll talk more about this before race day, but, you know, kind of ideally about 2 to 3 weeks before, so you can kind of have enough time to kind of break it in on one of your last kind of longer runs and runs during the week, and still have a relatively new pair fresh for race day. Okay. All right. Well, enough about shoes. Technical apparel, I don't want to talk too much about this. The only thing I'll say is, you know, no cotton, definitely no cotton socks. You know, obviously try to, you know, dress in lighter, you know, technical fabrics during the summer. Obviously it's going to change a little bit, and as we kind of move into the fall and it gets a little cooler. But I think most of this stuff is fairly common knowledge. But again, no cotton socks. Cotton is a precursor to blisters. So if you're still running in old cotton socks, you haven't made that, you know, that jump, I definitely suggest you do it. You'll never go back to cotton. It's just way more comfortable, way more breathable, and just more fun to run in. So, all right, something else you should definitely pick up or have at your local running store if you don't already, is a foam roller. I'm a huge fan of foam rollers and lacrosse balls. I would say definitely for most people, start with a foam roller. the foam roller is important when you're training for a marathon. As I said earlier, kind of, obviously the running itself is a huge part of training, but the other part, and if you will, I would say, as big, or as important as the running itself is what I call the maintenance of your body and everything that kind of falls under that umbrella. And so taking care of your body, stretching, foam rolling, getting a massage, things like that are all very, very important. But most of us don't have the time and resources to have a masseuse in-house kind of every single, few days or a week or even 2 or 3 weeks. So ideally, get a foam roller, use a foam roller. Foam roller is great because it helps to kind of break up any adhesions that form in the fascia and tissue, especially in the quad, especially if you've had, shin splints and calf issues and Achilles issues, things like that. But also great just overall structurally, hamstrings, back. People don't think about how important, foam rolling your back, things like that are also, important to foam roll. So get a foam roller and use it. Make it a part of your training routine. Ideally, you should be foam rolling, in my opinion, kind of 2 to 3 times a week, and definitely spend some time on Sunday after your long runs, before and after your long runs. Really helps with recovery. As I said earlier, the cross ball is what I call next level foam rolling. It's also great if you really want to get into, sometimes it's a little harder to foam roll your glutes and piriformis and sometimes even neck, upper neck and stuff like that with the foam roller and a cross ball. Works really, really great. You can pick up a cross ball at most sporting goods, a cross store for $5. But it also does, I'm not going to, sugarcoat it, definitely, gets in there a lot deeper and is pretty painful, but in a good way. So if you're ready for something a little bit more, again, next level, the cross ball also works great. And obviously the great thing about that is it's also very portable, especially if you're traveling a lot. It's a great thing to take with you. All right, we'll go through a couple things real quick. Running Store 101, something every marathoner should have, some Body Glide. Great for training, when you're out there doing your long runs, especially in the summertime. Again, you tend to sweat more. Body Glide is a non-petroleum based lubricant, and it really kind of comes in a little almost like antiperspirant type stick, and you can put it pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Anywhere you may get chafing, under your arms, women under your sports bra, men, between, legs, feet, anywhere you can think of, basically, that you may get any kind of blisters or chafing. Race day, I definitely put it very liberally under my arms, anywhere that the contact points with my running shorts or top. And again, a lot of times I put on my toes and on my heels just to prevent blisters. So if you're having issues with blisters in training, pick up some Body Glide. And if you haven't, I suggest you get some anyway. Because again, once during the summer, as the long runs get longer, that's when people tend to have issues. So the ounce of prevention goes a long way. Definitely pick up some energy blocks and gels, and we'll talk about using these a little bit more. But if you haven't ever used energy gels and things like that in training, this is a very, very important part, as I touched on earlier, important part of training for a marathon. Elite runners, they have their fueling down to a science. Age groupers a lot of times just tend to either kind of wing it or not do enough and not practice enough in training. So again, I really want to press upon you how important, we'll talk more about this a little bit later in the webinar, to pick up some energy gels. There's lots of different brands, different flavors, different consistencies. The basic here is that there's no wrong or right. It's whatever you like, whatever works for you. We'll talk about it more, but you know, there's definitely what I call a hardening of the stomach that takes place as you use these products. I can definitely remember the very first time, about 15 years ago, I tried an energy gel. I thought it was the most disgusting thing in the world. But now I don't even blink twice, when I ingest them then. So, obviously you get used to them, you figure out what brands you like, what flavors you like, and that's all part of the process. So, pick out some different flavors and different types and see what you like. And, even on your shorter long runs, the next few weeks, start to use them. Okay. Now's the time to kind of figure out, what you like and don't like. So when we get to our really long runs, you know what you like, and also your body's, again, has gotten used to them. Hydration, again, this is all part of fueling. Everyone should have some type of, hydration belt or handheld water bottle to use in training. Again, there's no wrong or right here. I'll give you my take on why I like the handheld, why I like the waist belts better, the field belt type hydration belts. One, as the training progresses, you can obviously the runs get longer, so maybe the first couple of weeks you're only using 2 bottles or maybe 3 bottles, but definitely as the runs get longer, you can add bottles as necessary. But it also gives you more options in terms of, you can have maybe 2 bottles of water, 2 bottles of Gatorade or electrolytes, whatever you're carrying. So I just think it's, it's a little bit more versatile rather than having just 1 bottle of fluids. Plus, obviously, 1 bottle of fluids, generally you have to kind of stop and find a, water fountain or something to kind of fill up with. But again, whatever works for you, whatever you like, but definitely make sure you have one. You really should be using this, pretty much again, from week 1 on your long runs, every week in training. Obviously on race day, there's going to be the aid stations out there and all the fluids. You won't have to carry your fluids with you. But again, you need to really practice this in training. This is a really important part of training. Again, fueling is something that's really important that you practice. Okay. All right. So I want to touch on really quickly. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts. There's a bunch of more slides I'm going to kind of skip over. But I do want to talk about why running form is so important, in my opinion. So the obvious thing, when we see people out there that have great form, the correlation is they tend to be fast. And we all kind of say, well, gee, I wish I was blessed with that kind of running form. Well, I don't think there's a perfect form, but I do think there's something you can kind of work towards. But, other than being just generally fast or getting faster, I think the more important thing to understand here is that good form equates to less stress on your body. And in training for, any race or a marathon, staying healthy is really important. And so, that's a big part of training itself. So let's just touch on real quick the biggest mistake. And then again, you guys can check out this video that I'm going to send you guys. I think it'll, again, when you can visually kind of see more of this, you'll understand this. But the biggest mistake that most people make is they tend to overstride. So as you can see here in this image, if you draw a center line down the person's body from their shoulder to hip to the ground, ideally your foot should be landing directly underneath your body, directly where it kind of should be intersecting that line. But this gentleman here is landing with his foot way out in front of him. So he's landing with his heel first, and we can get into all kinds of debates whether heel striking is good or bad, but the most important thing is not so much whether you're heel striking or whether you're forefoot striking or midfoot striking. Although we do, and I encourage kind of more of a midfoot strike, is that you're not overstriding. Because when you're landing with your foot out in front of you, you're slowing yourself, you're stopping yourself, you're braking yourself. You're not allowing You don't have a bend in your knee. You can see as you look at this gentleman's leg, his leg is straight. You don't have a bend in your knee, and then your knee doesn't work the way it's designed to. It's designed to work more like a shock absorber. So plus, technically, until you actually transfer all of your weight, until your weight comes forward, you're not actually pushing off, and you're kind of slowing down. So again, this is one of the biggest mistakes that most people make, and it's a fairly easy fix. And like I said, I really think it pays big dividends, especially when you're out there training for a marathon and spending, many hours running. It really helps to hopefully make you faster, but also lessen the impact on your body. People are used to kind of coming back from their runs and workouts and feeling, pain in their shins and knees and hips and things like that. But when they work on their running form and also they work on their core strength and overall strength, these are things that tend to kind of go away or lessen. So, yeah, take a look at the video. If anyone has any specific questions, if anybody really wants to take the time, I'm more than happy to take a look at it. If you want to have someone videotape you with their iPhone or camera, whatever, and send it to me, I'm more than happy to analyze it and look at it for you and do that for you. All right, so let's go through these. All right, let's talk about something else I think is really important, especially when we're, again, doing a lot of running like marathon training. The importance of warming up and cooling down. Ideally, the best time to stretch is definitely after workouts. Ideally, before your workouts, you want to do some type of what we call dynamic warm-up. And so I'll send you guys a little dynamic warm-up you can do before all of your runs and workouts. And there's, other than the obvious in terms of kind of getting a little more flexible and limbering up and working on your mobility before you actually start your runs, doing a dynamic warm-up and stimulate your body in different planes of motion also helps to stimulate your central nervous system, which is also very important. It really kind of gets you kind of, more awake, alert before your workouts. If you definitely have a little ache and pain, that would also even take a couple minutes to, spend some time on the foam roller before you head out the door. The way I kind of explain it is, you think about it, if you have an injury, you have something tight, and you don't work on it before you go out the door, what happens is, as you start to run or to work out, just because your body becomes a little bit more limber and looser as you work out, sometimes the pain will actually go away and things will actually feel better. But then what happens, as soon as you get done, it really just tightens up. So give your body a fighting chance. If you're having little shin splints, or you're having tight calves or Achilles issues, or you have a little bit of tightness in your hamstrings or quads or whatever, sometimes it's good to actually spend 5 or 10 minutes before you head out the door on the foam roller and give yourself a fighting chance, versus just go out there and try to muscle it through an injury or a small little ache and pain. Because inevitably what happens is those things, they don't go away. They get worse and worse and worse and grow and grow and grow and become bigger, and then eventually you have to stop running. So obviously that's not a good thing. But the most important time is after your workouts. Okay, that's the best time to definitely stretch. Ideally, again, 10 to 15 minutes is some good stretching. Take a look at the video on post-workout stretching. I'll send you guys tomorrow, and try to incorporate that into your your daily routine. I understand. We all tend to kind of, especially if you run in the mornings or even on the weekends, or the habit is to kind of get done and hop in the shower and go straight to work. And what happens is then you sit all day for most people, and that's where you get major issues. People all of a sudden get hip issues and glute issues and all kinds of injuries. So what I suggest is if you're that crunched for time, cut your workout 5 minutes short, 10 minutes short, and rather do a little bit less, but make sure you're doing your post-workout stretching and cooling down. It's that important. Definitely on the weekends, I know it's like, I know I come back from my long runs and I know the last thing I want to do, I just want to sit on the couch or take a nap or eat ridiculous amounts of food. But the reality is I really, need to take time to stretch and to foam roll and cool down properly, otherwise I'm going to get injured. So as much as I hate to do it, I kind of, get a little bit of some hydration and some fluids and something to eat real quick, and then I go and take the time to do it. It really does help. So make that a part of your routine. Again, understand that this is all, as I said earlier, part of the maintenance, and it's really just as important as doing, your long runs, and just as important as doing your daily runs and tempo runs and speed work, and taking care of your body. And you're going to find that you're going to feel better, you'll recover quicker when you're doing this stuff. So, all right, enough about that. All right, we're going to talk real quickly about fueling. We kind of touched on a little bit before, but kind of get a little more into the nuts and bolts of it. All right, so every single, Sunday, when you're doing your long runs, and if you're kind of moving your long runs to Saturday for some reason, which is fine, you should really be starting kind of the day before. So really Saturday evening ideally. You shouldn't be out too late drinking and dancing and having a great time. Ideally kind of Saturday evening. You should be getting to bed a little bit earlier, definitely taking in some carbs. And this is kind of what I call going through that whole kind of dress rehearsal for a race day. We want to kind of think, that same process. We're going to go through the same thing on kind of race weekend, where the night before and the day before, we'll definitely take in some more carbs, trying to top off our glycogen stores. But most importantly, Sunday morning, same thing, race morning, come race weekend, you're going to get up early and you should get, have a good substantial breakfast. Those of you that subsist on, some coffee and I don't know, a bagel or something really light, you can't run a marathon, you can't train for a marathon on that. You really need to have a good substantial breakfast. Everyone has different stomachs. Some people can eat right before they head out the door. Myself, I can't. I need at least probably, 45 minutes to an hour. Some people need 2 hours. So figure out what you can do. But, you don't have to have all of these things listed here. But, some toast with some almond butter, maybe a banana, maybe some oatmeal, maybe yogurt, and then some toasted peanut butter or whatever you want. But get something in your system. You want to set yourself up for success. Also make sure you hydrate before you head out the door. When the runs are a little bit shorter, you can definitely, and if it's not that hot out, you can just have some water. As it starts to get hotter and as we, move deeper and deeper into the summer, and especially as the runs go longer, I definitely would suggest, having more than just water, have some, electrolytes as well before you head out the door. And I'll give you my little spiel on electrolytes in a second. All right, well, during the workout, it's important to hydrate. And this is obviously what the hydration belt and handheld water bottles are for. About 4 to 6 ounces every 20 minutes. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get you guys into a rhythm again. So on race day, again, there's going to be aid stations at every mile. I think they start actually at mile 2 or 3 every mile, but after that, they're at every mile, and they have water and Gatorade on the course. Okay. So on race day, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of implement a strategy where we're going to alternate. Every single aid station, you're going to take either a little bit of water or a little bit of Gatorade, okay, and alternate. So you should be doing the same thing in training. Alternate a little bit of water, a little bit of electrolytes. All right, this is my 2 cents on Gatorade. So as I said, Gatorade Endurance is on the marathon course, which is great because you don't have to carry it. But I'm also not a huge fan of all the sugar in Gatorade. Personally, I think there's some, much healthier alternatives out there, things like Scratch Labs, things like Noon, Gutuo. There's other products out there that don't have as much sugar or kind of other, or less sugar. So keep that in mind. I'll leave that up to you guys to, to use what you want to use in training. The rule is to always kind of use what is on the course to get your body used to what's on the course. But, to be honest, I think, as long as you're training your stomach to have fluids in it, you should be okay if you're using another product. I know a lot of people don't like Gatorade and how sweet it is, and like I said, also personally, I'm not a huge fan of all the sugar. I don't think you don't need all that. Yes, you need the sodium, potassium, but not all the sugar. So make sure you practice that, again, every single week on your long run. You should be heading out there. If you're someone that sweats a lot, someone that what we call a heavy sweater, you have a very salty residue on your skin when you come back from your runs, you definitely need to make sure you drink a little bit more. And you may even need to kind of make sure that you're using salt tabs or salt pills in training or race day. So if you fall into that category, reach out to me, let me know. I can advise you, what I've used with other athletes and what generally works and doesn't work. And I'll work with you. For most people, just using the energy gels and electrolytes and water should be sufficient. But like I said, if you're a heavy sweater, then let me know and I'll help you. All right, let's move on. So the other part of fueling, we talked a little bit about earlier, is using energy gels. So again, you really want to, even starting kind of week 2, 3, even though the long runs may not be, we're not getting up to, unless you're on the advanced schedule, they're really relatively not that long in the first few weeks. But now's the time, anything lasting kind of over 70 minutes. And so, as I said, we're trying to kind of get our bodies used to using these products. Come race day, you should be using anywhere from 4 to 6 energy gels, depending how long you're out there. And I'll advise people that, depending on that. So start to use them in your workouts, and understand that, one, not only will you actually also have better long runs because you're actually using these products, but it'll actually help with the recovery because your body won't be as beaten up. You won't be as drained. If you go out there and you do a long run and you don't take any fluids or any energy gels, you generally have much more, you don't recover as quickly. Whereas you have, even if you do an 18-mile long run, but you hydrate really well and you use some of these products, energy gels and blocks and beams and stuff, generally you won't be as beaten up and you'll recover quicker and faster. And as I said, it's all about recovery. So that's one of the other benefits of using these products. If anyone has any issues in terms of energy gels, I do have some alternatives, some homemade energy gels that people have used with success. So, or if you're kind of vegan or anything like that, again, email me offline. I'm more than happy to help you. Post-workout fueling, very, very important. Other than the obvious of hydrating, definitely when you get back from your run, you should really make sure you hydrate and continue hydrating throughout the day. I think that's fairly obvious. But again, what happens is, especially on our long runs and even sometimes during the week, either we're crunched for time or on our harder workouts or long runs, our appetite tends to be suppressed. You don't even want to think about eating sometimes. And so, we tend to kind of just want to go take a nap or sit on the couch for a little while and recover. But there's a small little window, and actually the latest data that I've read over the last few months suggests that it's actually smaller than we thought it was. I think it says here, it says 15 to 30 minutes. They're saying it's actually closer to 15 minutes now. There's a small window of about 15 minutes where you really want to get some carbs and protein. The carbs are the real important thing. Okay, you do need some protein ideally, But the carbs, again, the latest data that I read, I try to keep up on this stuff, suggests that the carbs are the real important part. So make sure you're getting some carbs, you're getting something in your system. So to that end, talk about some recovery choices. Runner's World, obviously they're kind of paid by advertisers, but they like to tout chocolate milk as being, their number one choice as the recovery drink. And it's okay, in my opinion. Yeah, it definitely has a good blend of carbs and protein. But I think, Whole Foods and other things are generally better for you. So yeah, during the week, I'll give you some examples of what I, do after my runs. I come back from during the week, the shorter run. I'll have, sometimes I'll just have a fruit smoothie, a little bit of whey protein. Sometimes if I'm, in a hurry, I'll just grab a whole wheat wrap and put some almond butter or peanut butter and honey and bananas or something on it. Just get something in my system right away before I hop in the shower and go where I gotta go. Long runs, I definitely have something more substantial. If it's more of a kind of earlier long run, then I definitely will, come back and have some eggs and spinach and omelet, some tomatoes, maybe a little bit of protein on the side. If I do my long run later in the day for some reason, or the afternoon, sometimes I'll just make a turkey and avocado sandwich. If you're traveling, whether you're actually on vacation or maybe you're driving back from a trail that you run on, or you're going to be in the car after a while, then yeah, protein bars can work, but in my opinion, they're the least preferable, choice. Most of them tend to be, obviously more processed and have too much sugar. There are some better ones out there, but, again, try to stick with Whole Foods and set yourself up well during the week and for your long runs. So you have these things in the house, you have these things in the kitchen when you come home, and you can, I like to even just set them out on the counter just so I remind myself, and that way it just becomes automatic. All right, I do want to talk about nutrition, general nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist and don't have a nutrition, certification, anything like that. But I do want to impress upon you the importance of nutrition, general nutrition, in terms of your training, especially training for a marathon. When you're training hard, it's important to understand that you need to, again, take in carbs, and you need to fuel your body. You need to eat healthy. You need the nutrients, the vitamins, the protein that are contained in a variety of foods. And the key word there is variety. We tend to be creatures of habit. We tend to eat the same thing. But studies show that those that, have good variety in their diet are actually, there's a definite correlation there between performance and recovery. So, try to have a good variety. Lots of fruits and vegetables. For those of you that don't know, definitely those that are darker in color, the red kind of darker colored fruits and vegetables have both antioxidant properties as well as anti-inflammatory properties, which can be good for athletes and when you're training for a marathon. Again, for those of you that don't eat breakfast in the morning, I really want to impress upon you the importance of eating a breakfast, changing that habit, eating a good solid breakfast, getting up early, and also it's okay to snack during the day when you're training for a marathon, as long as you're obviously snacking on healthy snacks. I definitely as I'm working, I'm definitely snacking on almonds. I'm definitely snacking on some vegetables with some almond butter or whatever it may be, occasionally a yogurt, whatever, some tuna during the day. Also, make sure you're including some healthy fats in your diet. Things like avocados, again, lots of different nuts that have healthy fat. Sprinkling a little bit of avocado oil or a little bit of olive oil on your salads is also great. I'm trying to you don't have to go too crazy, but having a little bit of fish in your diet, a little bit of omega-3 is also good for your body. yeah, just try to eat healthy. Stay away from those, anything that's processed, anything that comes out of a box, those, what we call middle aisles in the grocery store. Understand that, and it's funny because I know personally when I'm training hard, I automatically eat better because I know I have to fuel, I have to eat right, and I need that fuel for my body. It's actually when I'm not training as much or when I'm taking some time off or, unfortunately injured, then that's when I actually tend to kind of not eat as healthy. But again, understand that nutrition is a really big part of training. If you really want to reap the rewards of all the hard work in terms of your training, make sure you're eating healthy and getting in enough carbs and protein and good variety of foods. Sleep, something else that's very, very important, but a lot of people tend to shortchange themselves. Again, a lot of people, when I say this, sometimes they're a little bit wowed, but you ideally should be getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep when you're training for a marathon. So to that end, try to get in a good sleep pattern, get to bed early, avoid alcohol and caffeine. That can not only inhibit you falling asleep, but also inhibit, the quality of sleep. It's definitely about your quality of sleep as well. The last thing here, something that I'm definitely guilty, we're probably all guilty of these days, but definitely tends to, affect your natural, melatonin levels and your sleep quality is, kind of powering down from our devices or keeping our devices out of our hands kind of the hour before we go to bed. So, no tablets, no cell phones, no computers. That definitely can affect your quality of sleep. Again, understand when you're sleeping is when the recovery is taking place. Okay, so the more sleep you get, the more your body's going to recover. It's when your body naturally, again, releases a little HGH into your system, and that's when the recovery process takes place. And so it's not just about training hard, it's about recovering and letting your body and absorbing that training. So if you're shortchanging yourself there, then if you're only getting 5 to 6 hours a night for whatever reason consistently, you're really setting yourself up for an injury, for overtraining. Your cortisol levels will be elevated. We all occasionally, stay up too late or have some function that goes on or travel or whatever, and maybe we just can't sleep. Then taking a nap the following day, studies actually show that taking a nap the following day, even a nap as long, as little as 45 minutes, will actually kind of lower your cortisol levels. So, taking a nap is it's not a remedy if you're, if you're, in advance, but it does help. The only thing one thing I'll say in terms of sleep, something else that is also good in terms of recovery, but I only really suggest this on your long run days, is taking an ice bath. Studies have shown that, so other than the obvious, ice baths will obviously kind of help with, the inflammation but studies actually shown that taking ice baths on days of your long runs or long, hard, workouts actually also helps you get better quality sleep. There's definitely a correlation there. I don't necessarily think most people don't have time or the want to take an ice bath every single day, and there are technically some physiological reasons why you don't want to do that, because inflammation isn't always bad. But I would definitely suggest, once a week after a long run, either kind of, again, after you've already done your stretching and you've, had some carbs and protein and had something to eat, taking an ice bath, or later in the day taking an ice bath. It really does help. All right. Well, before we kind of open it up to any questions, I want to say a couple last things. I think I kind of covered most of these things, but You know, if you guys have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to email me. You know, even if it's logistical questions about race day. I've done this race a few times and know pretty much all the ins and outs of what you can and can't do. So, you know, feel free to email me, even if it's a logistical, you know, question about race weekend or something like that. Again, I want to impress upon you, if you get sick or have an ache or pain or something happens, please reach out and let me know, you know, so I can adjust your schedule or advise you how to adjust the schedule. If anyone has any unique issues in terms of maybe nutrition or anything else, health-wise that I should know about, again, please, you know, email me separately and let me know. It's important for me to kind of know that stuff beforehand. All right. Well, lastly, I just want to say, you know, someone who's run many marathons and trained for many, many races over the years, you know, sometimes we tend to kind of focus on the end goal. We think about, you know, a certain time we want to run or race day itself. But I want to stress the importance of really enjoying the process, you know, and especially why you guys are doing this, obviously doing this for MSF. And I think that's a really great, powerful, motivating force, something you can really use to draw from in your training, something to hopefully get you out of bed, to motivate you. So think about that. Think about that in your training. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the training. Yeah, you're going to have some days, you know, that is marathon training. You're going to have some days when you're tired and fatigued, and you're going to have some great workouts. And so it's not all, it's going to be peaks and valleys for sure. But try to enjoy the training. Understand that no one workout is more important than the next. My little tip of the day, something that I think is that I use a lot of my elite athletes, and that I think is one of the, you know, keys to running. And a lot of times people don't really learn this until later on, is to learn to relax. You can still be out there running hard, running fast, but learn to relax. Being relaxed while you're running is very, very important. So to that end, one of my kind of cues I use with my athletes, I tell them to smile. And it may sound really hokey, I get that, but it really does work. If you think about it, if you're smiling, your face is relaxed, your jaw is relaxed, and everything else kind of follows with it, your shoulders, your neck. You know, it's hard to be kind of tight when you're smiling. So give it a try. That and using your arms up the hill or any hill, or especially when you're tired, are the two things I'm always telling my elite athletes when I'm working with them. So yeah, enjoy the process, have fun. You know, use me as a resource. And all right, well, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and unmute people, and then we'll see if anybody has any questions, and then we'll all right, who has a question? Any questions this evening?
Aerosols must be a 3-ounce or smaller size container. The container must be placed in 1 or
I can't hear you. Can you repeat your question again? Sorry, whoever was asking a question, it sounded like there was a question, but I couldn't hear your question.
Target 5 equals a 3, 7, 4. Target 5 equals 7.
It sounds like we're unfortunately getting a lot of background noise. All right, well, if there's no questions, then we'll go ahead and adjourn for this evening. If there is for some reason a question that I just can't hear, then please feel free to email me, and I'll email you back as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will send out this recording to you guys along with the PowerPoint. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Definitely, please take a look at all the videos I'll send you guys, and review the running form video, review the stretching and foam rolling. They're all very important. All right, well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate everyone calling in tonight, and looking forward to a great training program. And again, thank you for being part of Team MSF. You guys, so thank you.